Let me be honest with you right from the start, and I mean genuinely honest, the kind of honest that most channels in this space never are. Most men don't have a problem with intimacy. They have a problem with fear. Fear of that specific moment when they reach out emotionally or physically and the woman they're with suddenly goes cold, pulls back, looks away, and in that silence something inside a man just breaks a little. Not dramatically, but quietly. And over time, that quiet breaking shapes how he approaches every woman after that. More cautious, more guarded, more likely to never fully show up because showing up means risking that feeling again. But what if I told you that rejection in those moments isn't actually about you? What if the rejection isn't even really about the intimacy itself? What if it's about something far more specific, far more understandable, and far more fixable than you've ever been led to believe? Here's the truth that changes everything. Women don't reject intimacy. Women reject the feeling attached to it. Read that again slowly because it is the foundation of everything I'm about to teach you. If the emotional experience in that moment feels wrong, the answer is no. If the emotional experience feels right, the answer comes naturally, without pressure, without awkwardness, without anyone having to force anything. And everything I'm sharing with you today is about understanding how to create that feeling, genuinely, authentically, and without any manipulation. So let's get into it, because this is going to be different from anything you've heard before. The first thing you need to understand is how women actually make decisions around intimacy. And this is where most men are operating with completely the wrong map. Most men assume that women decide about intimacy the same way men do. Logically, practically, based on attraction plus opportunity. But that's not how it works. Women decide emotionally. The logical mind can be fully aware that a man is attractive, successful, interesting, and kind. And her answer can still be no. Not because she's being irrational, but because her emotional experience in that specific moment hasn't reached the place where yes feels natural. And here's the part that will completely shift your perspective. Women experience attraction differently than men do. For most men, attraction is immediate and visual. You see someone and your body responds, but for women, attraction layers. It builds. It accumulates through a series of emotional experiences over time. This is why a woman can meet a man, feel absolutely nothing, and then 3 weeks later find herself completely drawn to him. She wasn't playing games. Her attraction was still developing. It needed the right emotional conditions to fully arrive. Once you understand this, you stop rushing, you stop pushing, and you start focusing on something far more powerful. Creating the conditions where her desire naturally grows on its own. And that shift from chasing to creating is where everything changes. Now let's talk about the most common mistakes men make. Because before we get to what works, you need to understand why the old approach fails. There are 4 ways most men approach intimacy that almost guarantee rejection. The first is asking too directly. The second is asking too soon before the emotional foundation is there. The third is asking with nervous energy that she can feel even if you try to hide it. And the fourth, the most overlooked one, is asking without building emotional tension first. All 4 of these mistakes share one thing in common. They put the decision in her conscious mind. And the conscious mind is exactly where doubt lives. When a woman is consciously weighing whether to say yes or no, she's also consciously running through every fear, every risk, every judgment, every question about what it means and what you'll think of her after. And all of that conscious noise almost always produces the same result: hesitation, resistance, and eventually no. But here's the beautiful flip side of this. When you approach intimacy the right way, when you speak to her emotional experience, instead of creating a direct question she has to consciously answer, the decision almost makes itself. She doesn't feel like she's deciding. She feels like she's simply following what feels natural. And that is the entire game. So let's talk about the first principle. And this one alone, if you really internalize it, will change the way you interact with women permanently. You never ask directly. I want you to really sit with that. Because everything in popular culture, everything in the old playbook tells you to be bold, be direct, just go for it. And directness in general is a great quality. But directness around intimacy, before the emotional groundwork is laid, creates the exact pressure that kills attraction. Think about the last time someone tried to sell you something aggressively. The moment you felt pushed, what happened? Even if you were genuinely interested before, the pressure made you pull back. You needed space. You needed to feel like the decision was yours. The same psychology is at work here. When a man asks directly, he creates a transaction. He makes her weigh the decision consciously. He puts pressure on a moment that should feel organic and weightless. But when you shift from asking to inviting emotionally, everything changes. Emotional invitation is not manipulation. It's not a trick. It's the recognition that the way you make someone feel is more powerful than any specific thing you say. And an emotional invitation creates a feeling. It doesn't create a question. And feelings don't get rejected the same way questions do. So how do you create an emotional invitation? It starts with understanding 3 emotional switches that a woman needs to feel before intimacy feels right to her. The first is safety. The second is trust. The third is anticipation. And if even one of these 3 is missing, she holds back. Not because she doesn't want connection, but because something doesn't feel right yet. And her instincts are telling her to wait. Let me break each of these down because understanding them at a deep level will change how you show up in every interaction. Safety doesn't mean she needs to know you for years. Safety is a feeling she gets from your energy in real time. When you're calm, grounded, and not reactive. When you're not scanning her face for approval. When you're not shifting your energy based on how she responds, she feels safe. Your emotional stability tells her that you're not going to pressure her, judge her, or make her feel like she made a mistake. And that feeling of safety is the first door. Trust is built through alignment between your words and your actions. When you say you're not trying to rush anything, and then you genuinely don't rush anything. When you respect boundaries without making her feel bad for having them. When you're consistent. When your behavior matches what you say you are. Trust doesn't take years. It takes consistency over even a short period of time. And once trust is present, vulnerability becomes possible. And vulnerability is the doorway to real intimacy. Anticipation is perhaps the most underestimated of the 3. It's the chemistry, the buildup, the tension between what is and what could be. Anticipation is created through restraint, through suggestion, through the moments where you could escalate but you choose not to. Every time you hold back when she might expect you to push forward, you add to the anticipation. And that build-up, when it finally releases, feels electric. Not mechanical, not transactional, electric. Most men focus entirely on creating attraction and completely ignore these 3 switches. They work on being funny, impressive, and confident, all genuinely good things. But they forget that attraction alone doesn't convert to intimacy. She needs to feel safe, trusting, and anticipating. When all 3 are present, intimacy stops being something you ask for. It becomes something that naturally unfolds. Now let's talk about a technique I call the soft withdrawal effect. This is subtle, elegant, and remarkably effective. And it works because it goes against every instinct most men have in the moment. Here's how it works. Instead of leaning toward intimacy when the chemistry is building, you gently lean back. Not coldly, not dismissively, just slightly. You create a small amount of space. You demonstrate through your body language and your energy that you're completely comfortable with the connection, but you're not demanding anything from it. This does 2 things simultaneously. It removes pressure from the interaction instantly, and it creates emotional space where she starts to naturally lean toward you. Because here is what happens in her mind when you do this. The pressure disappears, and in the absence of pressure, she becomes aware of her own desire. She thinks, wait, why did he pull back? Does he not want this? And before she even consciously realizes it, she starts moving toward you. She initiates the touch. She closes the distance. She asks the question. This is not a game. This is not manipulation. This is the simple truth that desire and pressure cannot coexist. When pressure is removed, desire has space to grow. And when she initiates from that space, it's real. It's her choice. And it feels completely natural to both of you. There's another technique that I think is one of the most psychologically elegant tools in this entire conversation. I call it the implanted thought shift. And it works like this. Instead of asking for anything, instead of suggesting anything directly, You simply use soft, emotionally honest statements that help her become conscious of feelings she's already experiencing. Something like, I really like the way our energy feels together. Or, you're surprisingly easy to be close to. Or, you have this calmness around you that makes everything feel natural. None of these ask for anything, none of these push, but all of them do something powerful. They give language to feelings she's been sensing but hasn't put into words yet. And here's the psychology of why this works. When you articulate someone's feelings back to them with warmth and honesty, they don't think, oh, he's trying to manipulate me. They think, yes, that's exactly what I've been feeling. And that moment of recognition creates alignment. And alignment, the feeling of being truly understood, is one of the most magnetic experiences a human being can have. There's also a psychological principle at work here called priming. When certain words enter a conversation, they become more accessible in the other person's mind. When you naturally use words like energy, closeness, connection, natural, comfortable, you're shaping the emotional color of the moment. She starts interpreting what's happening between you through that lens, not because you've tricked her, but because you've helped her see what was already there. Now, I want to talk about something that I consider the most important element in this entire conversation. Because everything else I've shared with you depends on this. You have to be the calm in the room, not cold, not emotionless, not detached, genuinely deeply calm. The energy of a man who is present, comfortable in his own body, and not anxious about outcomes. Women are extraordinarily sensitive to male energy. They can feel nervousness before it even shows up in your words. They can feel desperation before you've done anything desperate. They can feel neediness even when you're being perfectly polite. And all of those energies do the same thing. They push her into her thinking mind, her analyzing, protecting, deciding mind. Her guard goes up, not because of you specifically, but because her nervous system is responding to an energy that feels unstable. But when you're calm, when you're grounded, when you're present without being needy, something different happens. Her guard softens. She relaxes into her own feminine energy. And that is where real desire lives. Not in the thinking mind, in the feeling body, in the energy that says, I am safe here, I can be open here. This is why women are often attracted to men who seem experienced. Not because experience itself is inherently attractive, but because experienced men tend to be calm. They're not frantically running through options in their head. They're not checking for approval. They're just present, and presence is one of the most attractive qualities a human being can offer another human being. Now let me give you one of the most practical and effective reframes you can make in these moments. Instead of asking for a yes, ask for a feeling. This subtle shift changes everything about the dynamic. Because when you ask for a yes, you put her in a position where she has to consciously accept or reject you. And all the fear, all the doubt, all the overthinking, that all lives in that space. But when you ask for a feeling, you invite her to simply check in with herself. And that's a much gentler, much more honest question. Instead of, do you want to come back with me? You say, does this feel too fast for you? Instead of trying to get something from her, you're giving her emotional control. You're saying, your feelings matter here. I'm not trying to push past them. I want to know where you actually are. And here's the beautiful thing that happens when you do this. If she says yes, it feels too fast, you haven't been rejected. You've been given information, real, honest, valuable information. And you can respond with something genuine. That's completely fine. I'm not trying to rush anything. I'm really just enjoying being here with you. And now she feels heard. She feels respected. She feels safe. And often within minutes, she'll be the one moving things forward because you removed all the pressure and let her feel in control. And the final principle I want to leave you with is this one, because I think it's the most elegant of everything we've covered. Instead of making intimacy your idea, let the moment itself become the invitation. Women love moments, not transactions, not negotiations, moments. Because moments feel real. Moments feel natural. Moments don't come with expectations attached. So instead of asking for anything, you simply acknowledge what's present. This feels really nice. It's kind of crazy how comfortable this feels. There's something about your energy that's just really easy to be around. When you highlight the moment, you're not pushing toward anything. You're simply naming what's already there. And women follow feelings. Feelings are authentic. Requests are transactional. And by naming the feeling, by making the moment itself the focal point, you remove yourself as someone wanting something, and you become instead someone who is simply present for what's already unfolding between you. And that shift, from wanting to being, from asking to acknowledging, from pushing to creating space, that is the entire philosophy behind everything I've shared with you today. It's not dark, it's not manipulative. It's the deepest form of respect you can offer another person. The recognition that her feelings matter, that her pace matters, that her experience of this moment matters just as much as yours. The men who understand this don't chase. They don't pressure. They don't perform. They simply create the conditions where connection feels natural, and then they honor the pace at which it unfolds. And those men, the calm ones, the present ones, the ones who make women feel genuinely seen and safe, those are the men that women choose. Not because they used the right line, but because they created the right feeling. And that is something you can start doing today. Not with techniques, but with genuine presence, genuine calm, and genuine respect for the person in front of you.